design a fully automated 3D printed coin roller and sell it to random people? These past 6 months, I made a decision to invest in the Bamboo Lab A1, and now I'm on a journey to prove to my parents I didn't waste my money. I've had a decent amount of design practice when I made custom pegboard attachments, which didn't turn out great, but I learned from my mistakes and made a very practical bathroom organizer. These have been fun to make. They have ultimately made me no money. They have, however, made me hungry for more. I think it's time to design my own invention that will be useful to more people than just me. I want to see if I can sell this and potentially make a profitable business out of this, because right now, we are not rich.
You're poor.
We are keeping track of the time invested, the expenses, so at the end of the video, when we hopefully sell a couple of these, we can see if all this hard work was worth it. Even this idea turns out to make me $0. I will have a creation that I'm genuinely proud of.
But we want profit.
Before I could do anything, I had to come up with a design. So I looked online for inspiration, and I realized that I'm pretty much on my own for this one. This is when I turned to something I've never turned to before. AI. Well, gotta do this myself.
I'll do it myself.
And that I did. I spent 38 hours straight designing an extremely detailed sketch. There are 5 different coins in Canada: toonie, loonie, quarter, nickel, and dime. They're all slightly different sizes, so I'm going to use that to sort them. I want this to be 100% 3D printable. No motors, sensors, or other materials, only filament, and of course my 3D printer. This means we're going to have to take advantage of a little trick I like to call gravity. This build is going to rely on big coins sliding over a gap and smaller coins falling through the gap. Make it so the toonie can slide over the gap, riding the little ridges along the sides of the ramp and fall into a bin, while the loonie and the other smaller coins will fall into the hole and go into the next ramp. Then, the next ramp will be the exact size as the loonie, so the loonie will slide over the ridges and the quarter and all those other smaller coins will fall through. This process will continue, eventually sorting all the coins. Now, I want to be able to put my coins in the sorter the same way I put them in my piggy bank. The coins need to be flat to correctly go over the gaps, so I added lids to each one of the ramps to ensure they all go down correctly. Now that I had a general idea of how this would work, I hopped on Onshape and used my very detailed sketch as reference. Little did I know this was the start of many different design iterations. It didn't take long to cook up the coin sorter online, and soon enough, I uploaded the file to the slicer and clicked Add Supports. Clicking this was a huge mistake. I didn't know at the time, but this small action would cause me a world of issues in the future. I was going to bed, I loaded filament and started the print. In the morning, I woke up to a perfect print, until I realized the ramps were full of supports that I was unable to remove. This made the entire print useless, wasting a ton of filament and time. I wanted my new design to be more compact and less ugly. I made the ramps so they would fit together in a square shape, hopefully saving space. This was much harder to design, but I did learn a couple new tricks, including assembly. This is where I can make parts separately, bring them into the assembly, and then see how they all work together. This design took me about 2 weeks of on and off working on it until I was finally finished. Printed the first couple of parts and realized this whole thing was way bigger than it was previously. While I liked the design, it wasn't what I was looking for. Design 3. This time I was determined to make a working coin sorter. I went back to the original design. This time I made the ramps and lids separately so I could access the supports in the middle. Everything printed perfectly and it was time to assemble. I taped all the parts together and it was time to test. I put tape on the front to ensure coins didn't fall out, so I went to my brother's room and borrowed some coins. I was ready to test it. I was hyped that I finally had a working product. The only thing was it looked like something a 5-year-old would cook up in elementary school arts and crafts. This was not the finished product I had in mind. So, it was time for design 4. This was going to be the final design. I wanted it to be perfect by the time I was done with it. For the first time in the video, I took time to think about what I wanted to change and did some drawings on what I wanted to improve. I wanted to add removable covers to the front to replace the tape. I wanted to make the bottom big enough to fit coin rolls. Finally, I wanted to make it so I didn't have to tape any ramps and lids together. I wanted it so I could easily pop everything in place. I didn't want to rush this final design, as I already wasted a ton of filament. I wanted everything to be 100% perfect before I printed it again. First, I fixed the tape problem by making a cover that had pegs so I could easily attach and detach it whenever I felt like it. Then I connected all the lids to the front cover, making sure to keep it in the right position so the main case and the ramps would fit together like a little puzzle piece. This left one problem remaining: fitting the coin rolls into the bottom of the sorter. It may seem like an easy fix, but the coin sorter was already 17 centimeters or 6.5 inches. The biggest coin roll measured 10 centimeters, meaning I had to add 10 centimeters to the design. The problem with this is the Bamboo Lab A1 has a build plate of 256 millimeters by 256 millimeters by 256 millimeters, which means our print is 2 centimeters too big. I tried everything to make the print smaller, changing the angles of the ramps, making the parts thinner, but whatever I did, I couldn't make it fit on the plate. You're probably thinking, you couldn't find a way to shorten it 2 centimeters? And I could, just not without sacrificing the quality. Eventually, I gave up trying to make it one piece and printed it in 2 separate pieces. It wasn't ideal, but it was the best I could do. This officially solved all our problems, and we were ready to print. The CAD files were looking great, but just to be sure, I scaled down the print and sent it to make sure all the pieces were worked together nicely. It worked out great. I was extremely happy to see. So I sent the first part of the full-size coin sorter, hoping this process would go smoothly. Halfway through the first print, the bed adhesion started to fail. It began to curl up around the corners. I let the print finish, not thinking much of it at the time, but when I pulled it off, I saw that the whole thing was warped and completely useless. I assumed it was a fluke and sent the 9-hour print right after. It was working great until about the halfway point when I got bored and started watching it. I tried to take off the supports in the middle of the print and completely detached the whole thing, rendering it completely useless.
You are dumb, unattractive, overweight, unworthy,
This wasted a ton of filament and was a really dumb move on my part. At this point, I needed a break from the project. I was wasting time, filament, and energy. I got busy with exams and completely forgot about this project. Until one day during our 5th period class, my tech teacher told us that our culminating activity was to design something and print it. He said the more unique and creative it was, the better. I immediately thought of using my coin sorter for the project. So instead of spending time designing something for that class, I would reprint the coin sorter and hand it in. Suddenly, I was extremely motivated to finish, so I got right back into the project. I did a little bit of research as to why some of my prints were failing, and learned it was most likely the cooling fan. A couple small adjustments later, and the coin sorter was printing again. This time, the printing went much smoother, and a couple days later, I had all the parts finished. Parts fit together perfectly. I finally had a finished product in my hands. Now, it was time to test.
What? The hell no!
At first, it didn't work, but a little bit of sanding later, and it was working perfectly.
You hear me? Hit the rollie stove with the rollie on. Who was our getaway car?
Now that the coins were falling into the right spot, I needed a way to get the coins into the roll. I made containers that matched the size of each roll and added a slight angle to the top so I could funnel all the coins in. I designed a mechanism that allows me to pull the container out of the roller and then push the rolls out of the container. Everything printed perfectly. The coins were getting sorted and getting rolled. Everything was working together great. I realized there was no way of knowing how many coins were in each slot unless you count every individual one that fell. So I made a device that tells you how many coins are in each slot or how many more you need before they are full. I made sure to leave space for this when I was designing, so it had a spot in the final product. And it ended up fitting perfectly. I was super excited that this project was finally finished. I wanted to know how much time this would save me, so I recorded myself rolling and sorting the coins by hand. Then I got the coin sorter and used it to roll and sort. Just like that, my 3-month project was finished. Super happy with how this came out. Thank you so much for watching till the end. You could subscribe if you wanted. Have a good day.